What's up guys, today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends Fantastic Four Retro Wave The Thing action figure. I love the style of the retro card, the artwork is really eye-catching and definitely screams for your attention on the shelf. Over here we see the Thing action figure packaged in the plastic bubble. He's got one spare head. He also has two interchangeable fists that are hidden beneath this artwork over here. And the action figure also is rather huge. You can see that Hasbro just managed to squeeze him into this bubble with his feet sticking out just below that artwork. Now onto the back of the card. You can see the Thing over here throwing a punch. There's some line work instructions over here about the swappable heads, description of the character, the rest of the figures in the wave, and finally some product information in different languages at the bottom. So let's go ahead and get him open. To unbox the figure, I simply slice the plastic bubble off the card so that I can keep the card back. There is a second tray just behind the action figure, and that's for his spare fists. His two spare fists are cast in orange plastic. It's exactly the same sculpt that you get with the Walgreens Thing as well as the Super Skrull Wave Thing. These fists also articulate the same way, going inwards as well as outwards. You can pop those fists on just fine, but because the hands are exactly the same sculpt, they didn't solve the main problem that I had with the previous Thing action figures, is that his hands are just kind of undersized for the rest of his arms and his body. Next up, he also comes with a spare head. I really like the sculpting and the expression on this face. He's sculpted with that distinct overhanging unibrow, and he's also got that exaggerated underbite. The paint in his eyes are also sharply applied, together with the whites of his teeth. And once you look on the inside of that head, you will realize that there is an inner piece that's inserted beneath the outer shell of the head. So Hasbro probably did all that eye paint as well as teeth paint on that inner piece, inserted it into the outer shell of the head, so that's how you get really super sharp paint applications for the eyes and teeth, with zero bleeding out of those areas. At the top of the head, he also has some light orange shading. This appears to be applied with that digital print, and just generally quite distinct sculpting for the rock texture all over the head. You can pop on the alternate head really easily, and I really like this sculpt. I think it is among the best of the Thing action figures released so far. And now on to the sculpt of the figure. Most of it is reused. The only new parts are of course his head sculpt as well as his hip pieces. The previous Thing action figures were sculpted wearing shorts, but this time the new action figure is sculpted looking more like he's wearing those retro swimming trunks. The orange plastic used on the new figure is a slightly brighter shade of orange, and you can see that he's given a lighter orange shading on some parts of his body, like the top of his shoulders, his chest, down his forearms, as well as on his feet. And this shading treatment is the same as the Super Skrull Wave Thing. My Super Skrull Wave Thing over here, I liked the lighter orange shading that Hasbro gave him, but I also wanted that weathered look from the Walgreens The Thing action figure, so I went ahead and drew in the lines with a Gundam panel marker. So for the sake of this review and the comparisons that we're gonna make to the Super Skrull Wave Thing, just imagine him not having all these lines drawn in. And as we just spin these figures around, here's a better view of that lighter orange shading that goes from his chest to his shoulders and down to the outsides of his forearm. The shading now seems to be applied a little neater. On the older figure it looks a little sloppy, and that shading is also carried on to the top of his feet. There's none of that shading on his legs. And spinning the figures round to the back, the Super Skrull Wave Thing also has shading at the top of his back. But this time around, once again, Hasbro has left out that paint on the back of the figure. And I cannot express how tired I am of seeing once again Hasbro copping out and not painting the back of the figure. Zooming into his head sculpt, and I can say that I really dislike this. He's sculpted looking like a derpy baby. The paintwork is clean, but his eyes look like he is really in a dazed and glazed over. I can't even tell if he's actually looking at something. He's got a 1,000-yard stare. And the sculpting for his mouth is so goofy. You can see his tongue sculpted in there, but he has no teeth. And this just looks really strange. I'm not even sure what source material Hasbro used to sculpt this head. And here's to put things in perspective. I think this head sculpt is probably the worst of all the Thing head sculpts that we've gotten from Hasbro. And this is such a far cry from the really great work on the alternate head. I think the alternate head is on par with the head sculpt that we got from the Super Skrull Thing. These two are definitely my favorite head sculpts for the Thing. And I don't actually have the Walgreens Thing action figure, but I do have one of the heads from that figure. So here's just a quick comparison of all the Thing head sculpts. The Walgreens head sculpt is also nice, but I think it still falls somewhere in the middle behind these two head sculpts. And just in case you're wondering how he looks like with head swaps, here he is with the Walgreens head sculpt. And here he is with the Super Skrull Wave head sculpt. And I think this also works really well with this body. So let's just quickly run through the sculpt of the rest of the figure. He's got rocky texture all over him. It's good that despite the number of mold reuses, all that texture is still sharp and distinct all over the figure. Some of the rocks also appear to be dented and scratched. All those scratches are coming through in the sculpting, so that's great work that we've seen before. The white paint on his trunks is really clean. It's well applied so that you don't see the blue plastic coming out from underneath. The whole band is applied all the way around his crotch piece. And coming back to the front, his hip pieces are also cast in that same bright orange plastic. But this time, they've got that dark blue paint on top of a sculpt for his trunks. The sculpt also has wrinkles in the fabric. So this new sculpting work is pretty good because those wrinkles look cohesive with his crotch piece. And the paint also matches really well to that blue plastic. And moving on to his legs, once again also that sharp sculpting for the dents and scratches on the rock textures. Overall, no surprises, but it's still good work on that sculpting. For articulation, his head is on a ball hinge, so you can swing his head right and left. There's a little bit of sideways tilt right as well as left. He can also look down just a little bit and up a little bit as well. He's got a swivel hinge at the shoulders, so he goes all the way around and comes out pretty far. He's got a swivel just above the elbow, so you can spin his lower arm around. There's also a single hinge in his elbow joint that gets you just about under 90 degrees. There's a swivel hinge at the wrist, so you can spin his wrist 360, and it also articulates in as well as out. He's got a ball joint at the torso that also allows you to swing him left and right. He doesn't actually have much sideways tilt. You can also get him to bend forward as well as just a little backward. He's got a waist swivel as well, so you can spin him around at the waist. His new ball jointed hips do go out pretty far, and that's great range for a big bulky guy. Also great range forward and backward. He's got an upper thigh swivel, so that goes 360. This time this joint isn't as tight as the previous Thing action figures. Double jointed knees, that is pretty good range as well. He's got ankle tilt, and he can go upward that far as well as downward quite a fair bit. And finally, he has ankle pivot outwards as well as inwards. He is a big old sturdy action figure based on the sculpt that we've seen before, so there should not be much surprises over here, even though I'd really dislike that head sculpt. But I'm happy to say that at least the alternate head sculpt has definitely saved this figure. The clean paint on his trunks is also really nice and classic, and the sculpting work and detail in the rock texture, to me, feels like a waste if he's not given a black wash. So I'm probably gonna give him that same treatment using the Gundam panel marker to draw in the lines in between the rocks. The Thing stands at just under 7¼ inches, and that's just slightly over 18 centimeters. For size comparisons, here he is with the rest of the team from this wave, with Psycho Man and the High Evolutionary, Silver Surfer and Doctor Doom, She-Hulk and Spider-Man, some G.I. Joe Classified series, and some Star Wars Black series. Not for the first time, Hasbro has dropped the ball on a head sculpt in this wave, the other being the Invisible Woman. Fortunately, the alternate head sculpt is pretty stellar work and more than saves this figure. The sculpt is mostly the same and has those small hands, but the detail in the original sculpt work is still good stuff, and that is updated with the new clean and simple retro style trunks. I'm pleased that I have a classic version of The Thing, and I recommend this for your retro Marvel Legends collection. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel for more toy reviews. Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.